Yo, partnership alert, partnership alert, partnership alert. Living Corporate has a partnership with LinkedIn Learning, an American massive open online course provider that provides video courses taught by industry experts across a wide array of subjects. Now, the partnership is because Living Corporate has courses on LinkedIn Learning focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion for leaders, career professionals, and anyone really looking to upskill themselves and be better allies. So make sure you check out our courses on LinkedIn Learning by clicking the link in the show notes. And let's just say you don't want to do that. When you go to LinkedIn Learning on LinkedIn, search Living Corporate. We'll be right there. All right. Peace.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the break room.
Hey, everybody.
I am Dr. Nikki Coleman, and I am very pleased to co-host today with Dr.
My name is Dr. Jide Bama-Shigbin. I'm so excited to be with Dr. Nikki. We rarely get our chance to be one-on-one, so I'm
I think this is our first time.
This is our first time.
With just us two. Yeah. I was like, I think so.
Yeah.
And so we want to talk about parenting as a professional. Woo, and it ain't easy. So among the four co-hosts, Jide and I are the two parents. And as you know, we're trying to navigate the professional world as Black people to begin with. And then you add parenting on, that's a little extra whipped cream and sprinkle on the sundae. And we wanted to make sure we took some time out to really give voice to that, sort of talk about the challenges that comes along with parenting, but I also think particularly parenting while Black, and also just parenting while Black as a professional. Like it's multi-layered. We want to
and in a pandemic.
And in a pandemic. Let's never forget the panini.
Parenting while a Black professional in a pandemic. You know, like wow.
It's layers to it, for reals. And so we will jump in a little bit just for those of you all who may be new to the break room. First of all, welcome. We're happy to have you here. As an overview, what we try to do is sip a little tea. So we'll try to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world. I'm excited that the tea this week is sort of frivolous and joyful. We've had a couple weeks where it ain't been that joyful. So I'm happy that we have like a little bit of a light tea to sip. Maybe a little white tea, we could say. And then we'll sort of get into the topic of the show. If there are questions, we'd love for you to pose them here. If you're with us live, you can always email questions to us at thebreakroom@livingcorporate.com. You can see that
in the chat.
That Jide put it in the chat. And then we always end and wrap up with the last nerve. And I have, again, asked to sort of take the mic and talk about the last nerve this evening. So that'll be how we use our time together.
Great.
So, Jide, I bet you have no idea about what I want to talk about in terms of the tea. I told you what I was going to talk about, but I bet you were like, okay.
Listen, I might not watch it myself, but through Twitter, I think I've gathered enough clues. So go ahead, tell everybody. I'm excited.
So we want to talk a little bit about this ratchetry foolishness that is the latest going on with the Real Housewives of Atlanta. And honestly, I don't watch it regularly either. I'm kind of on again, off again with it. But I know enough about the major players that I was like, interesting. So it came out, what is today? Thursday, either I think Tuesday of this week, maybe even Monday, where one of the stars of the show, I'm so condescending. They are reality TV stars. Let me not put it in air quotes. They're so condescending. Let me pull back my judgment. One of the stars, Portia Williams, she's been on the show for several seasons now. She wasn't part of the original cast, but she's been on the show for several seasons, so she has some notoriety for sure. And she's had her ups and downs in her love life. But this latest turn is a bit much. So she announced in a selfie on Instagram with one of the previous cast members' estranged husband, that now Portia and this man, Simon, are now engaged after 1 month. questions. The internet's had questions. One, she used the term Simon's divorce is settled. However, it is not finalized. It's not a legally dissolved marriage. So technically, he's still married to a whole other person. Secondarily, he only announced his divorce in January, but y'all fell in love in a month. And I'm doing that quick math.
Getting on your phone. Hold on.
I'm trying to make it make sense.
It's messy. It's messy.
It's so messy. And so here's the thing. I don't judge. Who you catch feelings for is who you catch feelings for. There is not a grown person that got somebody in their closet that they're like, dang, I can't even believe I was with that person. Like, I hope nobody ever finds it out. So we all have had our moments. However, she even says in her post, the optics don't look good. And so then let's lean into that a little bit. If the optics don't look good, could we have maybe managed it a little bit differently? And so this is where I get in. And I don't want to be moralistic about it. But I also think there's a way to engage in difficult conflicts or uncomfortable situations with more grace and compassion. And I just feel like she could have kept that woman's ex-husband picture off of her Instagram.
So you're right that there are ways to handle things with grace and tact. Okay.
Yes.
Is that what the Real Housewives are known for?
It's not. You're right. It is not that, and that's the other layer. This is very on brand. This is very, very on brand. No doubt about that. And somebody I know even was like, I don't even think this is real. I think this is just like helping facilitate a storyline. And we know that reality TV is not based in reality.
It's true.
And that they have to sort of create drama. And there's ongoing drama. I also think, though, this is where I put my psychologist hat on. I think the sort of people that are drawn to being stars, like somebody who has the capacity to sustain multiple seasons of being in that sort of context, also probably really thrives in chaos, probably really naturally has some relational dysfunction. And so this is a way for them to sort of stay immersed in that, but it also gives them gratification, notoriety by being sort of a star, right? I just can't imagine, like, I don't know someone that is sort of healthy and balanced, that knows how to negotiate healthy relationships, functional relationships, doing this show for 8-10 seasons. I can't see that happen.
So can I say something that me and my wife always talk about?
Yeah.
So whenever my wife watches a lot of reality television, I can't lie, I watch some too. I don't watch the Real Housewives, but I watch some reality television. And she'll start to kind of maybe feel bad for somebody or have empathy or sympathy for somebody. It always comes back to this, okay? Every single person on television wants to be on television.
Absolutely.
Okay? And that's a certain personality type, a certain characteristic that they all share. And, there are people who are made for television.
Yes.
Yes.
And they have found this is a franchise. I would imagine, I don't know the numbers. I think it is their most popular franchise of that whole brand.
Out of all the Real Housewives, you mean, like Atlanta? Yeah. Got you.
Yes, I really think so. Somebody correct me. You can put it in the chat if I'm wrong, because I know they have multiple ones: New Jersey, New York, Orange County, Beverly Hills, all the ones. But I think this is really one of the top ones, and they bring the drama like none other. So
it's true.
I can't wait to see how this all plays out. Listen, if she is in love genuinely, if he is divorced, because the other thing is you never know what's behind the scenes. And that's what I always say about celebrities of any sort, right? I love Beyonce. All hail the queen. Love her. But I don't know what she's like in real life. Like if I met her in real life, I might be like, babe, come on now, right? It is all a marketed and crafted image, one way or the other. So I never take anything at face value, and I never put somebody that's a celebrity like beyond something, right? On the other end, sometimes marriages dissolve before divorces are final, right? That can sort of emotionally dissolve, right? Like we have decided we are not married in any sort of psychological connection or union, and we just haven't dissolved our finances, our
time.
material world, and they do
Divorces
take time.
Mm-hmm.
So we could give some benefit of the doubt.
No, never.
Just
those days are
like also it could have been handled a little bit differently. So
yes.
That's the tea I wanted to talk about. Life is messy. Folks are messy. I try not to contribute to the messiness, though. That's sort of how I try to live my life, but to each their own. So that was a little tea I wanted to sip on. So the one last piece, and so we'll transition. So she did put in her statement something about, because she was in a short-term relationship with the father of her daughter, but she said that her new fiance and the father of her daughter have decided they're going to, I don't know, have some sort of amicable, respectful relationship. So she was like, two black men working together. Let's, could we get an amen for that? So good luck to those children is what I say.
Yes.
So let's talk about parenting. So I'll share a little bit. I am a single mother by choice of a 9-year-old girl. I was getting on up there in years. And this may be TMI, but here we go. I had like a candid conversation with my doctor at age like 35. And I was like, I'm reading all this stuff about fertility and women and, how your likelihood of fertility declines as you age. Is that true? Do I have to be worried? And she was like, if you want to have some babies, you better make it happen. And I was like, oh, okay, we're just going to have this real conversation. And I really did. I always had a vision for myself for being a parent. And so I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to make it happen. And so I had my daughter at age 37, which was considered a geriatric pregnancy, which is so disrespectful. It was so disrespectful. Like I had to have a special orientation with the midwives and everything. I was like, come on, we got to do better than this. And like a lot of Black women that we now know, which I don't know that we had as much public data at the time. But we now know that a lot of Black women experience additional challenges in pregnancy and higher rates of infant mortality.
Disrespect from the doctors, higher rates of infant mortality, higher rates of maternal mortality, higher rates of preterm birth, low birth weight, the whole shebang.
The whole shebang. And I had a lot of the shebang. I ended up having preeclampsia. I was pretty sick throughout most of my pregnancy. And so when I think back about the care, while I don't think that I got any, I don't know that I got substandard care. I will say that. And I wasn't ever in like physiological pain or discomfort. It just was always something a little bit off. Right. And I think I didn't quite, it always felt like, you're off on this metric, but you're doing fine in this area, right? And so maybe I did get dismissed a little bit, but the long story short is she ended up being a late term preemie, but she was extremely low birth weight. She was 2 pounds and 1 ounce when she was born.
Wow.
Hands down, the most traumatic experience of like the whole thing. It was not at all what I envisioned for my pregnancy, for my birth plan, for any of that. She ended up spending the first month of her life in the NICU. And that substantially cut into my FMLA, right? So even as a faculty member, right, I was an academic and I thought I'm going to, I've seen other people that they get semesters off and their department works really well with them. No, I remember very vividly, I ended up having a cesarean. And so I was in the hospital for an extended period in recovery and, that whole thing. And so because she was in the NICU, I would have to get driven back to the hospital every day to visit her because you're not allowed to drive for several weeks after major surgery, or which a cesarean is. And so it was either the first day I was driving back or day 2, but it was very shortly. Got a call from my department chair that was like, how are you? And I was like, it's been really rough. And then he sort of cuts me off and I realized, oh, white man, you don't really care how I am. And then he says, well, I just want to let you know we're going to need to amend this, the plan that you have. So your FMLA actually is going to start earlier, which would bring you back to start at the spring semester. So I just wanted to inform you we're going to be sending you some of that paperwork and where can we fax it? Like it was like that.
Wow. Sounds illegal.
Yes. It did not feel good at all.
Yeah.
And in the state of mind that I was in, like literally, it was about survival. It was about recovery for me and making sure my baby was going to be okay.
Of course.
There was no fight in me at that time at all. And I was like, okay, I guess. So I got about, I think 10 weeks off or something like that. But 4 of them, she was in the NICU, and it was the middle of the semester. And so the remaining part of it was really the semester break. So literally January, whatever, I went to work with a 5-pound infant and was like right back at it, teaching 3 classes a semester and writing papers and advising. It was like right back in it.
Yeah.
And so I know I had a lot of privilege in that I had a job that was well paying, that I had, health insurance. So things were covered. However, the bills from my surgery, the bills from my extended hospital stay prior to the surgery, the NICU bills, like all of that stuff was substantial. Yeah. But I share all of that in part to sort of juxtapose it. So if you've ever had the experience of having a kid in the NICU, if they are at a certain level of sort of vitality, they have them in a little pod. And one of the children in the pod was the daughter of a working mother. And it, like, this idea around privilege really hit me in a new way when I could literally be there with my daughter for hours on end because I had FMLA through this job. But this mother had to go to work because she was a wage earning employee. And she would call in on her break, right? So she had 2 15-minute breaks and a lunch break. And I could sort of hear the rhythm of her calling to check in about her baby. And it was such a stark reminder for me of, one, about there's so much inequality in our sort of overall system with regard to working parents and childcare and like what that really means. But also how I'm experiencing this level of discrimination even in this context, but I have privilege. It was this really eye-opening sort of way for me to get more gratitude, but also get a little bit more fired up just about, I think, how so much in our overall structure of society works against working parents, right? So I'll be quiet. I don't know what you want to share about your experience as being a father, your experience with, I know some of your research sort of centers around Black fatherhood. So,
so first I want to thank you for sharing, Dr. Nikki. I appreciate it. Like learning that, I also didn't know any of this. So it's nice to, learn this about you, super interesting and, super valid experiences that I think fit into a lot of people's broader frameworks of what parenting is like, right? So my story is a bit different than yours, right? I mean, first I'm a dad, right? So our stories diverge from the very beginning, right? I'm a father, so I've never been pregnant myself. I haven't given birth to a child myself. But I was in grad school, doing my thing in grad school. I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and before you know
things
it, things happen, right? And I was, at the time, I was 24 years old, and I was terrified. No, I was 23 years old when I found out we were having a baby, and this is another one of these things to point out, right? Like somebody 30 years ago, you say you have a baby at 23, they don't bat an eye.
Right.
They don't bat an eyelash. Right? That's late. That's a geriatric pregnancy, But, at this point, like at 23, people aren't having babies at 23 no more, or at 24. Yeah. So it was scary. It was, it was a hard time. We decided to move forward with this baby, and it was all about trying to support my wife during this time. Because I honestly do believe that nobody in the world needs more grace than pregnant women and women who've just given birth. Nobody in the entire world, right? Because none of us would be here if it wasn't for those processes, right? So I've always believed nobody needs, and I won't say I was always perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like pregnancies are hard times, stressful for moms, stressful for me because she says she wants a Snickers. I get her a Snickers, and then she wants a Kit Kat, right? Like what am I supposed to do? You know, it's hard. Right?
You were supposed to know in her mind, even though she said Snickers out loud, she was thinking about a Kit Kat. You were supposed to know.
I know better now. I know better now. You know, but it's a pregnancy. I'm very happy that my wife had a healthy pregnancy with our first child, and our second child. You know, so they're 6 and 3 now, 2 boys. You know, and both very healthy pregnancies. C-sections, though. You know, which are, as you pointed out, major surgeries. Like, you know, I'm watching it and I'm seeing them have a saw cutting into stomachs. You know, doing the whole shebang. It is. You know what I'm saying? Like it's surgery. But lucky I've had that. And for both of my kids, and this is a privilege, I live in California and I'm a state of California employee. Okay. 6 weeks paternity leave automatically paid.
Wow. That's nice.
You know, and that
in the wild west of Texas, they don't care. They don't care nothing about you.
Right. Right. That's the sad thing. So I acknowledge that that's something I have, right? Like, and even lots of other states might have maternity leave, but they don't give a crap about, you know, paternity leave, you know?
Right.
And even those 6 weeks, I did have to cut it short a bit to go back to work as a grad student, you know? But I had a lot of privilege in these experiences. And then raising kids, I think that's where most of my privilege came from, you know? So I have these 2 kids, and you meet the kids, which you will one day, you know, everybody always says, they're just like the best kids. Like, they're just so nice, you know, they're just so whatever. Well, the reality is, okay, at various times, we had access to WIC, Women, Infants, Children. Okay, we had access to subsidized childcare for most of the time period at UCLA daycare, right, which is a really good daycare. And there's some accountability there because it's within a larger system, you know. So we had WIC. Thank you to WIC. You know, those types of programs are so important. We had subsidized childcare. We had a strong group of family and friends that lived close by to always be able to support us. We lived in UCLA housing, right? A community of other graduate students who are parents, right? So like there's playgrounds every 300 feet, you know, something like that. And all the, like, I can't understate how all of these things made my experience not as hard as it is for other people, because no matter what, parenting is hard. You know, it's
like, let's say that part again. Parenting is hard.
Yes. But once again, I've had a lot of privilege being within, you know, these institutions, having access to affordable childcare, subsidized childcare, which is affordable, you know, and it allowed me to get through I can't say I would have got through my PhD without literally every single one of those things, right? Also, I had 2 advisors who were understanding of the fact that I had kids, you know, graduate school advisors, my bosses essentially, who I was like, listen, I can't do that. After 5 o'clock, I'm done because I got to pick up my kids no matter what, every single day. I'm happy I had people who are understanding of that.
So what I love about all of those pieces, Jide, is how a recognition that, like, there's the rhetoric that mainstream white America has taken from a West African proverb of, like, it takes a village to raise a child, right? But we don't actually enact that, and we don't do it federally, right? And so for you to acknowledge, like, hey, as part of the state that I live in and associated with these state benefits, right? And so that's a recognition that when your child is cared for, or when you have those supplements to help sort of offset the challenges of parenting, you can be present. You can do the things that you need to do. You can continue to sort of evolve and grow and produce as a human being. But that's not every state, and that's not at every level of employment, even within that particular state. Because I have some family that's in the Bay Area of California, and 2019, so this was maybe 2018, pre-pandemic. We went out there, and one of the neighbors, my cousins, their child is older, and so my daughter was with me, and they were like, oh, there's a neighbor down the street that's the same age, they can go play together. And so ended up having conversations, right, like you do when you talk to other parents about work and parents and school and stuff like that. And a lot of conversation, it was in that household of a 2 professional household, but is it actually cheaper for one of the parents to stay at home than think about both parents going back out in the workforce and then having to pay for childcare? And if we pay for childcare, can we actually afford this house in this neighborhood? Because, you know, the housing is out of control in California, right?
Out of control.
And so I just
think and the childcare is out of control. So
just to put some numbers out there, right? Like some of the things that I have seen that we looked at is that the average American spends about 25% of their monthly income in childcare. And if you're in a single parent household, that's probably upwards of 50%.
50%, yeah.
So I remember my first 3 years of childcare, because I had to put her in childcare. I was able to sort of cobble through that first semester just because, one, she was so little. Two, I just wasn't ready for her to go into that environment just yet. And my being an academic allowed me some flexibility, right? Again, another privilege. But I put her in childcare at 9 months old. So between the ages of 9 months and 3 years old, on average, I spent about $10,000 a year just on childcare. Just to get her there. She didn't take that, wasn't with a snack, with clothes.
So I just want to get this right, okay? So this is money you've spent for childcare for your child to be in a place while you go to work so you can make money to spend at the childcare for your kid. So you can go to work for you to spend the money. I would like to also just add to that the daycare that my children went to. I always say I was subsidized. I was very lucky. Okay, the cost for an infant per month, $2,300 per month for an infant. $2,300 a month. $2,300 a month. Yes.
That's even with the inflating housing prices here in Houston, I get that. That's still a very lovely mortgage payment. That's a lovely mortgage payment
for a great house, a beautiful house. Yes.
That's some square footage here in a lovely neighborhood.
Yes,
that's so insane to me. I thought my $1,170 or whatever I was paying out of pocket. I don't know, and it's always like to this day. And so I knew a couple other single moms. And we talked about like once she finally got into kindergarten, right? You're like, woo, free school. Well, not quite, because and so this is one of those other things. The school day is 7:15 to 2 something. How many people work from 7:30 to 2? Like, what work day is that?
Just the teachers. Just the teachers at that school.
Right? And so then you have to pay for aftercare. And you're going to pay for it one way or the other. You're either going to pay for aftercare embedded in the school, or you're going to pay for aftercare that's somewhere else. And you hope that there is a good place that has transportation that will come pick them up and take them. And
that's safe, that you feel like you can feel safe there. Because that's a big part of it. So, you know, sometimes you go to a place and immediately just you sense it and you're like, this is a no.
Not for my baby. I don't know whose other kids are here, but
it's a no. Yes.
It's a no. All of those things. And so it's never ending. And so I think that is sort of and so we're just talking right now about sort of what I would call like structural limitations. And then there is the piece that you were talking about, or we talked about a second ago, is the hard part, right? This is the psychological impact. And particularly for raising Black and brown kids, part of your responsibility as a parent is to sort of not just protect them from the world, but also protect them sort of psychologically around what it's like to navigate the world as a Black and brown child, right?
Yes.
So that requires a different level of facilitation around building up their esteem. Usually, at least I'll speak for my household, I would imagine the same for yours, and I know for lots of other folks, it's also like offsetting the education, right? Let me tell you about all the parts of our history that are not being talked about. Or what if we talked about Christopher Columbus from this other angle, right? Let me invest in you in these ways. If you have children that are in mixed race environments, if they're experiencing racial bullying or racial isolation,
which happens very early.
That, which happens very early.
And preschool.
Super early, right? I know so many young Black girls that go through this phase of like not understanding why their hair is. And my daughter has a looser textured curly hair, but I would put her hair in braids. And when she was in pre-K, at a mixed race school. And that child came home, she had cut one of her braids out. Ma'am, first of all, now you got a bald spot right. First of all, you got a bald spot right here. Geez. But because it took me a minute, but everybody had straight hair, right? It just was down and straight, and hers was always in twists or plaits or something. And she didn't want it. She tried to figure out how to take them out. Yeah. And then it just was, I'm just going to straight cut them out, right? And I've had, family members who were darker skinned that talked about, what is that like? Or why do I look like this? All of that is an additional psychological space. Yep. And really emotional labor, psychological labor that Black and brown parents have to navigate that is different than their white counterparts or peers.
Because it's not a question of if they're going to experience it. You're just waiting. Have I put them in the right preschool environment, right? Is it going to happen at their elementary school? Is it going to happen in the aftercare? Is it going to happen on the sport at the YMCA, right? Is it like, it's not if. It's not if.
It's when, right?
It's when.
So we're in the workplace day in and day out, navigating the bullshit that is white supremacy in the workplace, dealing with our own microaggressions, trying to figure out how we're going to navigate so we can have our own professional development. Are we going to stay in this place? Do we need to make a move? All of that sort of stuff that we talk about regularly in the break room. Yeah. And then now if you're a parent, you could have a child going through that. Yep. And then I would just add that even if you somehow avoid all of those pitfalls, raising children is difficult because it is a third shift, a second shift, a fourth shift. Like, I remember a couple of years ago, I posted just the status on my Facebook. I was like, does anybody else just pull in the garage and sit for a few minutes before they actually go in the house? And so many people were like, oh yes, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Because you need that moment to be like, ooh, let me put down professional world. Let me see if I can get my mind right. Can I have just like a few minutes to me before I go in and start this whole dinner and homework and put that down? And no, you can't have that. And it is
play with me,
time.
please. Play with me, please.
I don't want to play.
Can I listen to Bubble Guppies? Just the whole thing. Yep.
I don't want to play Barbies. It's 7 o'clock. Everybody, let's just shut it down. I don't want to do a tea party, right? And we don't talk about that. Like it's such commonplace. And we don't talk about it. But that is an emotional toll, especially if, especially when you don't have any of those other sort of offsets, right? And I think that is the piece about my experience as being a single parent. I have a lot of friends that are dual, household parents, and they're like, "Girl, how you do it?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't ask. I don't know. I had a good friend one time tell me, she was like, I don't think you know everything you do like in a day. And I was like, oh, I know because I'm exhausted at the end of the day. She was like, no, I don't really think you do. I think if you really thought about all that you did.
Yeah, you would faint. You would pass out.
I quit.
Yeah. From beginning to end. From beginning to end.
So I think we have a lot of work to do just in our overall structure of this country. And the pandemic exposed so much of that. And yet I wonder how much is going to actually change, right? Like the pandemic exposed how much sort of structural inequities there are. I mean, you took away free childcare. Public schools shut down. All the things shut down. The sports, the ballet, the art, all the things. And parents and children are at the same table doing schoolwork, logging into Zoom.
And accounting. At the same table, At the same
table. But I just think I think now that we are moving out of the pandemic, and it really is so weird to me because, I live here in the state of Texas. We've been open for so long. I can't even remember when he officially opened us back up. So it feels very much like a back to normal for whatever that is. And so it's sort of like, okay, let's pretend the last 15 months didn't happen. We're not going to learn any lessons from this. And we expect you to come back in full force. You're vaccinated. What's the problem, right?
Yeah, just like before. Why not?
Why not?
You came in 9 to 5 before, but I think a lot of us realize how absolutely unnecessary a lot of stuff was.
Yes.
Depending on your job. Like, actually, I didn't need to go into work at all.
Like, I'm real good right here.
Yeah.
But I think we need to have some more serious conversations in this country. One about the financial burden, right? Because we could talk about sort of just like the structural challenges that comes along with that. But if anybody who is listening, watching, has ever struggled financially, there's a level of stress that comes along with that. And I honestly believe that most parents really are doing the best that they can with what they have.
Yes, and they love their kids. Yes.
And they love their kids. And so they're going to always try to find a way to make that a priority, right? And what happens is, I'll speak for me personally, there were some challenging years there financially where, listen, $11.70 a month, plus a mortgage, plus school loans, plus a car note. You do the math. I was an assistant, or I was an associate professor, but I was in the College of Education, right? In the social sciences.
Right.
I was not making six figures as a professor. Let me just dispel that myth if that exists.
Right.
So there's only so much coming in, right? And what am I going to do? Not have her in childcare? What are we going to do? Go live in the car? Like, there's only so much, right? And there's a level of distress that comes along with that. That does create a psychological burden in addition. And so I know I wasn't at my best career-wise for a couple years there at the beginning. But I don't know that we have a lot of professional or corporate frameworks that give grace to parents in that way, right? So this is where so for me, the conversation around equity really becomes so important. We're not asking you to not produce or have expectations for your employees, but can you shift what those expectations are given these very real sort of boundaries and burdens of being a parent? Why can't we even have like a humane conversation about that?
This country, capitalism and white supremacy. I mean, that's the easy answer. Capitalism and white supremacy.
What's also the true answers?
Yeah, it's also the true answer. Yeah.
True answers.
They want to wring you out for every single drop you have. Yeah. Instead of understanding that when you do better, you work better too. You know what I'm saying? Like you're actually much better when you feel comfortable and you're not financially stressed out, XYZ. Like you work better. There's study after study that proves it, when you're not burnt out, when you're not feeling role strain, right? When you feel supported by your boss and your coworkers, right? Like, and that makes your parenting better, right? Because what happens after a long day at work? You come home and you're not 100%, right? It's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, but it is also true. When I switched careers and started making more money, because the one thing too about academia, and you know this very well, Jide, it's nonstop. Students there's always somebody emailing you. You can wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you've missed 5 emails from somebody between 1 a.m. It's like, why do you people never sleep? It's sort of relentless.
Yes,
and I held a couple departmental level leadership positions. And so that was like, you need to be responsive to things, right? And I got to the point where I was like stressed every time I opened email, like what am I going to need to do now? So even though I was physically at home, oftentimes I wasn't mentally at home. I was disconnected from her. And so when I told her I was leaving that job and transitioning to something else, she was so happy. She was like, Mama, you're not going to be as stressed anymore. And I was like, dang, you are feeling this too, right? This is this is a real impact on you. And our relationship has improved. Her sort of ability to navigate difficult and stressful situations, to communicate with me, has also improved, right?
I love that.
Your point is so well taken that when you are not in a state of stress or distress, right? When you have all of those needs met, when you're not worried about the finances, when you're not overburdened with unreasonable or unfair expectations, when you can really fully be present, it does make you happier. When you're happier, you're more productive, and it makes you a better parent.
Yep.
And don't we want people to be better parents, to raise children that are not out
in
here
the capitalistic white supremacist environment, though,
shooting people up? Like, I just,
you know,
I feel like that should be a goal of ours,
a priority. You know, affordable childcare for every. I think the thing that is the wildest about this to me is that we literally none of us would be here if it wasn't for somebody who gave birth to us. You know what I'm saying? Not even the most staunchest conservative person who's against all this stuff. You would not be here if it wasn't for somebody who held you in their stomach for XYZ months and got you out somehow.
I literally grew a human.
And you don't want to support these people? You don't want to make these people's lives easier?
Oh, but they'll swear they pro child. What is it? Pro life. I couldn't remember. They not pro child. They pro life.
Yeah.
That is the difference. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what are the things you know about sort of what are the joys of parenting? What are the strategies we can use to sort of offset those stressful moments? Right? We don't want to. We always want to leave you all with some good nuggets, some positive information. So
I think the best thing about kids is just watching them grow, you know, and just watching them grow into smart, funny, athletic, musically talented, whatever kind of person they're going to grow up to be, you know. Like nothing made me realize that you can never control another person like having children. Nothing. And I've been able to translate into other stages of my life. Oh, because you have a 0-month-old infant. They run you. You don't run them. You're on their schedule. You know, when they cry, you feed them, you change them, you put them to sleep, right? Like that's what you do because that's what they need, you know?
Yeah.
So it helps me realize that you can't control another person. You know, all you could do is support them to the best of their ability. You know, I love, you know, I feel like as soon as they were born, I just knew I loved them for life. And it's hard to kind of explain that, you know, but once you meet this person, you're like, oh man, this is my person, you know, like this is my person and my responsibility, you know? So while it's challenging, you know, the payoff is a long ways away, right? Like between 0 and 18, that's when you're putting in the work. You know, of being present, being there, protecting them, supporting them. But 18 to the rest of their lives, right, is hopefully the payoff, and you start to see the payoff, you know?
Yes.
And it's allowed me to have such an appreciation for my own parents too. You know, like I have 3 older sisters. Like I have 2 kids, and we are done. Okay, we're not having any more children, right? You know, but like appreciating, like, wow, like people have been doing this for generations and generations, and have been trying their best, you know. And I'm obviously not a perfect parent. It's impossible. My parents obviously weren't perfect, but I know they love me and tried their best. And having kids has, like, I have a third eye, right? You know, for them and appreciation for them. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. Oh, so many things. So somebody told me when you have the baby, you come to realize you didn't know your heart could be that big. Yes, that was the way it was described. Yep. And so that is, and then what I would tell people as soon as I had her, what it felt like to me was autofocus. Like literally the lens was like, oh no, this is what's important.
Yes.
And so I think that has helped really giving me a broader sense of like, what is the priority for me in life? Like, what do I really value? And I do. And so even though I was having those stressful moments and tension between work life and career and her, I always chose her. Right. Always. And so, and related to that, one of the things I think children can teach all of us is the capacity to be in the moment. We talk about this, and many of us even sort of meditate to sort of be more centered and grounded and be more present in the here and now and be mindful. But children come into the world with that capacity, baby. When they are focused on that thing, like when she used to be like, let's play. We were in that world, right? And it was very real to her.
Yeah.
And also, my kid is funny. My kid is funny. She's extremely talented. She's smart. And she's willful, right? And so that thing that you were saying, you can't make nobody do nothing.
Nothing.
I love all the things that people who don't have kids used to try to say about what they kids gonna do and what they kids wouldn't do.
Okay.
Baby, meet me on the other side. Once you get one, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
And specifically for me as a Black woman raising a Black child, a Black girl, that she is willful. Like, there are moments where I have to be like, okay, this is not functional right now in this moment, right? We still need to be respectful and navigate the power dynamics of this relationship. But there's always a part of my mind to be like, that's my girl. Like, she gonna go out and kill it, right? So they are wonderful in all the joy that they bring and all of the sort of life lessons that they bring. And what I've tried to do is really be intentional about being observant of those and learning how I can incorporate that more into my own life for my own psychological health and well-being, right? It is very easy to get sort of caught up in thinking about the burdens and the responsibilities and the labor, but the benefit is really, really beautiful as well.
What's one piece of advice you might have for one of our listeners who maybe is thinking about having a kid and is kind of on the fence, like about the experience or what to expect?
That you'll never be ready. Like, you're never ready. I thought I was in my career. I was on the verge of tenure. I was making the most money I'd ever made. I had a house. I was established. Maybe I was not ready. And
you can't be.
You cannot be. You honestly don't know. For all the rough, hard, bad, and all of the wonderful, joyful, beautiful. Like, you just can't have a vision for it. Into it. So if you are thinking about it, do all the homework, do all the right things, that you can, but it's a risk, right? Because you also don't know what that little person gonna come out to do. I was very fortunate that all of the things that could have gone wrong with my pregnancy didn't, right? And I'm very clear in being grateful to God on a regular basis of like that I am here, that I survived that. And that she survived that. But, especially for Black mothers, there's a lot stacked against you, right? But then also, even if you have the world's best pregnancy, you don't know who that little person is going to be. That little person could have a range of mental or psychological or physical health concerns. Their personality could just be one that does not mesh with your personality, but you still love them, right? You
might want them to play basketball, but they want to be in theater,
Right.
High School Musical, and you gotta manage that.
You gotta let them be what they gonna be, right? So so that's what I always say too. Is like, my job is to help her evolve into the best version of herself, and not for me to impose my idea for who she should be on her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
So, with that in mind, I think we're going to move on over to the last nerve.
It's all you, Dr. Nikki.
And if there are other questions that you have for us around parenting, or you want to ask about anything else, you can always, again, email us at thebreakroom@livingcorporate.com. We're happy to take those questions and answer those. So my last nerve, I'm just going to take a minute. It's about these people in this country called the United States of America. Jide, I am convinced America is the only country on the planet that could mess up vaccinations. How are we in this place where white people who have never been systematically disenfranchised, oppressed, mistreated or abused by the scientific or medical community in this nation's history.
Mhm.
How y'all talking about y'all don't want vaccines? But at the same time, you don't want to wear a mask. You don't want to social distance. How can we be the one country to be this stupid that we can't put 1 and 1 together to get nowhere near 2? You can't have it both ways.
America is white supremacy all grown up. You know what I'm saying?
like baby Huey all grown up. Like
all grown up.
I am so annoyed by these people and then we have to even talk about vaccine hesitancy.
Mhm.
Listen, if Black people who have been systematically disenfranchised, abused, mistreated, experimented on by the scientific and medical community in this country for centuries, if we could put on our big girl and big boy panties and go get vaccinated, if brown people in this country, Latino folks in this country, Asian folks in this country that have been systematically disenfranchised by the scientific and medical communities in this country can go out and get vaccinated, what's your excuse, white man in the middle of Idaho, Iowa? What?
Whiteness and white supremacy never care about the common good.
And
Never.
that's the other part.
They never care about what's good for everybody. You know, and wearing masks, social distancing, getting your vaccine, right? COVID-19 is a group project. You know what I'm saying? Like, it depends on all of us doing our part, you know? But whiteness, you know, why would they do their part? Like, oh, it's going to benefit the Negroes? No, they're not here for it.
It benefit anybody.
Yeah. Even themselves.
Oh my God.
Even whiteness even cuts off its nose to spite its face. Yeah.
That's the thing. That is the thing. So that was my last nerve for the week. Joe Biden's America is looking good. Pretty good on most days. But on this, I don't really know if he has the answer. So we're going to have to see what he does on that one.
You're right.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so very much. I love talking about parenting, and it was a joy to get to know you better.
Same.
I hope that we imparted some sort of nugget of helpful information or wisdom for any of you all that are parents or parents to be. Yes. And we will be back next week with, I don't know who's here next week. Somebody will be here next week.
Might be me. We'll see.
That feels right, maybe.
Yeah, that feels right.
I feel like you double booked yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like stat.
Yeah.
We'll see. One of us will be back next week.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Somebody's going to be back. There will be a show next week.
In the break room, and we will see you all then.
For sure.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.